Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another interactive screen share video where we go over some interesting results in the world of the antiques and collectibles trade. Today we are focusing our attention once again on high-end vintage toys because the latest LCG auction yield some very interesting results that I want to go over. And I just want to talk about two pieces in particular that came out of this auction within the last 30 days. So here is the auction in question, and you can already see the two pieces we are going to be talking about today should be staring you right in the face. We're going to be talking about the vintage Star Wars figure that sold for a little over $161,000. And of course, we also have to discuss the insanity of the Castle Grayskull playset that sold for close to $210,000. Yes, I'm being serious. These are real prices right now, guys. This is one of the hottest markets in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. And honestly, it really doesn't matter whether or not I agree with the prices being paid for this market at present time. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. I will say this, which is fascinating to me, is a lot of vintage toys that I grew up with. You got to remember, I'm part of Generation X. I was born in 1976. So some of the very first toy lines that I remember, the very first toy line that I remember was, of course, the vintage Kenner Star Wars line. Then I also remember Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and to a lesser extent, Thundercats. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is most of these toy lines were only on the market for a few short years. Even if we look at the popularity of the vintage Kenner Star Wars line, that pretty much launched in 1978, late 1977 really was when the early bird certificates were available. But really 1978 was when that line got its start. And already by 1984, 1985, it was pretty much done with. When we look at Masters of the Universe was really only on store shelves for a little less than 6 years overall. I mean, this is pretty fascinating when you consider what some of these pieces are selling for, because what I'm trying to pretty much hammer home is that it's really Gen Xers like myself that are going after this stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some millennials, some later age millennials that are also playing in this market, but it's really the Gen Xers that are putting this market on blast at present time. I can tell you that firsthand just through my own interest in this market and also through the clients that I have through my consulting business that are either inquiring about buying or selling these pieces at present time. Now let's start today by talking about lot one of this particular auction, which is of course the 1978 Luke Skywalker double telescoping lightsaber version of this particular action figure that is factory sealed, graded by AFA in 90 condition. Now, there are none graded higher. This figure sold for almost $162,000. This price does, of course, include the 20% buyer's premium that LCG Auctions charges, which is pretty much on par with what Heritage and also Hakes also charges in regards to a buyer's premium. So this is not out of the ordinary. Now, it's very interesting, the history of this piece and also the price history of items like this, because quick review, the double telescoping lightsaber versions of not only the original Luke Skywalker, but there are also two others, Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Those action figures had a double telescoping variant. These particular figures that had the double telescoping saber, they were discontinued rather quickly because they were deemed a safety hazard. So I do want to spend some time just talking about this because it's very interesting how the prices for a lot of these just keeps going up and up. I am going to link this page in the video description below so you can click on it if you want to read the history about these particular collectibles and why they're trending for all-time high prices. Please feel free to do so. But I do also want to talk about this particular example of a 1983 Masters of the Universe Castle Grayskull playset in AFA 90 condition. Remember, these are all factory sealed examples That sold for close to $210,000. Now, of course, this is the highest graded example possible. And I want to give you a little bit of the history here. I am going to click on this. And as you can see, if you look at the back of this particular Castle Grayskull box, you're going to see that there's 12 characters on the back of this box. That is actually important because there are 3 separate variants to this particular playset. This, of course, is referred to as a 12-back because, again, there's 12 characters featured on the back of the box. There are also an 8-back version out there that has 8 characters on the back of the box, and there is also a no-back version. Now, all together, I'm going by memory here, so please forgive me, I believe AFA graded like 51 of these total in existence. That includes all these different variants. Well, this one is a 12-back, and it is the highest graded at AFA 90. Do I honestly think, though, it's worth $210,000 roughly at present time? No, I don't, because always remember, if you are investing in this market, the market for vintage toys, action figures specifically, there's a lot of risks in this market, even if these items are factory sealed and third-party graded, even by a reputable company like AFA. You have to understand, these items were cheaply made overseas. They were not designed to last the long term. So if you are parking money in this market, just be forewarned, you are taking on added risk as opposed to investing in trading cards or coins or currency or other simpler items that can be third-party graded and easily stored. So this is something you need to realize. Now, again, I will put a link to the description of this in the video description below so you guys can review it. It's really interesting, though, seeing how hot this market is getting, especially when we look at what generation this was really marketed to. And that's really what interests me. It's almost like we're seeing a massive peak in some of these items, especially geared towards Gen Xers. Now, that doesn't mean this market can't go any higher. Unfortunately, in the antiques and collectibles trade, the only constant is change. These markets are always changing and evolving. I predict, if you want my honest assessment, I really think the market for vintage toys probably has good 10 to 20 years left in it before it starts to dissipate. It doesn't mean that prices are always going to be trending at all-time highs. It just means with Gen X aging, because when I look at myself, I was born in 76. I mean, I'm going to be 49 years of age in a couple of months. So I am starting to get up there, whether or not I want to realize that or not. I'm thankful that I don't look it as of yet. But I will say this. I honestly think as we age, at some point, some of these prices are going to start to fall, like what we're seeing with baby boomer collectibles, like when we look at Lionel toy trains, Mark's toy play sets, items that were popular in the 1950s and 60s, they have been coming down in price over the last 10 years because most baby boomers are aging out of the market. They're either dying or they're consigning their items to auction and just selling and washing their hands of it. So it's going to be very interesting to see if this market goes in that same direction. Now, obviously, certain toy lines, due to the relevance of the licensed property it's based on, they're going to have more life than others. I predict Star Wars is going to do better over the long term than that of Masters of the Universe, than that of Thundercats, than that of Transformers. G.I. Joe, believe it or not, has proven to be a little bit resilient. There is talk that Hasbro is trying to bring back the line. They already are. I do know if you go to Walmart and Target, you can find G.I. Joe action figures on store shelves. You can also find, of course, Masters of the Universe. But Masters of the Universe has really struggled out of the gate whenever they tried to relaunch the line. So it's going to be very interesting to see where these markets go from here. I just want you to be aware, if you are investing in these markets, just use extreme caution. Number one, hype and prices are at all-time highs. And number two, you have the added risk of the fragility of these items, even if they are factory sealed and graded. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I am going to do more videos on vintage toys. I just don't want to do too many videos on vintage toys. I have done several interactive screen share videos where I talk about vintage toys now. So I do want to change directions once again. So we went from Pokemon. We're now talking about vintage toys. We're now going to talk about other markets in the trade before circling back around to both Pokemon and vintage toys once again. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in my content, please consider sharing this video, consider liking the video, or consider subscribing. Thanks so much and have a great night.